I stood there looking down at the odd blue and orange marble below me. The planet close to Earth, save for its affinity for its odd red grass and blue tree leaf. We had been sitting up here twiddling our thumbs for the better part of a year now, and every time we would ask for a decision to be made, we would end up with the same politicalism we always had. More paperwork to write out, more maintenance duties to do, and more drones to make and send down. We had gotten quite good at making drones now, disguising them as buttons and street lamps. We likely knew more about the natives than they did now. But that was it. Just more and more and more stupid drones, cameras, and spy equipment. What were we trying to accomplish? And why? What was the point of us being here with some of the most advanced scientific tech in the state, and unable to actually do anything? What's the point? Seriously, I can't understand it, I said to nobody. Pardon? I heard a voice ask. It was Reginald, one of our pilots. I replied in kind and pointed angrily at the slowly dying planet in front of us. That? Seriously, what's the point? To secure the interests of the Federation and its allies and endeavor to improve our capacity to understand life itself. Isn't that the same corpo boilerplate they've been spitting out for the last year? He replied with a scoff. Pointless buzzwords made by pointless people used exclusively because they actually don't have any idea what to do. They've been in closed session for 6 months now? I remarked idly, and used my wearable to pull up some captured footage from the planet's surface. 8 months, 12 days, actually. The longest congressional closed session ever recorded, and still going. Hard to believe we managed to keep this a secret for as long as we did, huh? He idly leaned against the transparent steel panel. Not really. Governments long past have been able to move nuclear weapons in unmarked trucks through the middle of million-people cities, and transport the president and various other dignitaries in complete secrecy before. I should know. I used to work on one of those details. Could have the president show up at a Dairy Queen and nobody ever knew it happened. I wish they would stop dragging their heels, though. Things are getting worse down there, I said, pulling up a newspaper article. Oh, how bad? He said, and looked at the translated headline. Oh, that bad. It started about 6 months ago and it's just been getting worse and worse. Plague hit them, and then their mines ran dry. Then a series of catastrophes hit. Then this shit. Almost as bad as we had it in the 20s? I said with a shrug. God, talk about a slap in the face. First a virus hits their private sector, then I guess their oil reserves or whatever it was just runs dry. Then they have to fight a resource war to get the little that remains in the reserves everybody ignored before. Then, while all that went on, rolling blackouts, political turmoil, that shit with the mega hurricane that hit that one continent, now this, he idly remarked, as he recalled the issues over the last few months. I read the headline out loud again. Food riots erupt in South Quarter as crop failures persist. State of emergency declared by High Council. I shake my head and look at my mail inbox. Nothing. I then look at one of our older, less viable cargo ships, and a spark of an idea hits me. Huh. God, that thing's old. Isn't that a Gen 3 freighter? Yeah, Carpathia, named after the ship that rescued survivors of the Titanic. She is old, but she is sturdy and strong. Just came back from a supply run this morning, he replied with a shrug. How poetic, I said, and pulled up a video feed from the food riots on the planet's surface. Fire, brimstone and ash as a small apartment complex is set ablaze by rioters. Audio can hear screaming and scraping, sounds of shattering windows, crashing cars. The planet was in a state reminiscent of life during the 1920s, just barely into full-scale planet-wide industrial revolution, at least by our standards. Cars weren't readily available as yet, and trains were the most common form of travel next to carts and stuff. The architecture style was a mix of what we would describe as Roman and Art Deco. Magnificent stuff, really. It was only very recently they discovered the magic of fossil fuels. But their planet didn't seem to have the kind of billion years of life kind of past we did. Their oil reserves were less than a tenth of what we had. The discovery of this precious resource let them drastically accelerate their development. Too far, too fast. Just like us, only with a lot less chance to figure out what was going on before the fit hit the shan. I took a closer look at the aliens from scans we got. Blue skin, about 5 feet tall on average. No body hair with curved beaks for mouths, frills of feathers in various configurations on their heads, and wing-like arms that had 3 digits on 2 arms. Digitigrade legs, with a very robust mobility system and strong muscle structure. A race of bird-like bipeds with mammalian biology capable of short flights with their wings, and a race that never seemed to skip leg day. Industrious, maybe too much for their own good, and short-lived, maybe 80 years on average compared to what we had these days, about 600. Can't stand this man. First intelligent life we have found in 3 centuries, and this is what we do? Sit here in space, thumbs up our asses, with the politicians whining at each other light years away while they crash and burn? I barked angrily at the screens. I know your frustration, man, but what can we do? I don't know, but I don't really fancy a court-martial and public execution. And what do we do anyway? He asked. We can do goddamn everything, that's what. Gene synthesizers that can cure any disease. Multiphasic fabricators that can 3D print anything from almost nothing. Reactors that can operate on nothing but water or ice. Engines that consume hydrogen and spit out water, I said, gesturing to the Carpathia. Industrial design computers that can make almost anything based on a single prompt within a certain dimension. Communications arrays that can pass the speed of light and deliver any message at any distance from any location, he said, seemingly thinking aloud. Starship production systems that, to be frank, aren't that different from our days screwing around with rockets back on Earth, only very fancy and iron-based. Still have rocket engines, though, only now they're so efficient they run almost exclusively on pure hydrogen. Not to mention the hybrid engines and thrusters that use energy and hydrogen to produce thrust, I remarked casually. Unless we forget that hydrogen is the literal baseline blood of the universe, so it's literally everywhere. One simple hydrogen scoop and a fusion engine and you can travel anywhere forever, really, he remarked, trending off into a new line of thought. Yes, everything these people could ever need is right there, I barked, pointing at the Carpathia. It's a Gen 3, but hey, what do I know? I'm just a researcher. It's not like we can just fly down there with a ship and a shuttle and just hand them all they need on a silver platter to save them from extinction. No! We have to wait for orders from some morons 6,000 light years away. I hate politics! I bellowed frustratingly. Yeah, I kinda get the feeling even if we did give the Carpathia her last jaunt, the brass wouldn't be able to tolerate her I just lost my keys excuse. But you know, the bird dudes are kinda nice, he said. Indeed they are. A society based on trust above all else, and polite. My God, are they polite! Give you the shirt of their backs in a snowstorm, these guys. But no! Stupid paperwork! I bellowed. Well? Our train of thought was interrupted by my communicator chirping at me. Finally! Stupid bastards responded. Responded to what? He asked. To my very long message explaining in almost autistic detail as to what's going on, why it's going on, and why we need to stop it, I said, and read the message. I read it, and then I excused myself, walking into a nearby supply closet. Fire! I screamed my lungs out in there out of pure, unadulterated, frustrated rage. Then returned. So that's a no, I guess, he asked. It was in fact a, we value your call. We will get back to you after we deliberate the evidence you have presented. More than anything else, felt like I was the DMV paying for a parking ticket, I remarked. Jesus, how old are you, sir? He asked. Clearly I was showing my age. I forget. You stop counting after the 200 mark, generally speaking. In short, I am old enough to know what an income tax is. And yes, it was as stupid as it sounds. Back to the matter at hand, we are stuck for yet another 3 months, watching the only people we have ever known outside of humanity burn themselves to ash, despite the fact they don't deserve it. Let's watch! I barked, half-heartedly smiling as I watched more videos of the food riots. We watched as we saw the breadline start, the sight of what meagre rations they could procure being handed out to the few who could afford it, mostly working-class families. Look! Starving parents while children eat only once a day! I fake laughed at it, my brain trying desperately to make sense of what the hell I was doing up here instead of down there. Oh, look, sir! There's another economy-critical company going bust because it lost half its labour force to the plague. He fake laughed too. It seems I wasn't the only one using fake humor as a coping mechanism. We carried on this routine, watching from countless video feeds, live or recorded, of the rapidly collapsing planet. Scenes that centuries ago would have sent thousands of Doctors Without Borders swarming in with thousands of armed guards to protect them. We slowly stopped laughing, now partially sobbing, from the rapidly accelerating devastation we were seeing. Finally, we could do no more, and slumped against the glass. "Boss, just so I know, how long do they have left if we don't do anything?" Reggie asked. "Given the current trends, it will be a full civilizational collapse, back to the post-medieval era. Most specialists are at serious risk, not only due to plague but food shortages. Education will collapse, everyone will evacuate major cities and return to agrarian life in the farmlands. We're talking 5 years for it to fall, then maybe 2 generations to lose it all completely. They won't die off, far from it, but it might be another 1,000 years at least before we meet them again. Not to mention the potential for conflict and stuff. A lot of buildings are going up in flames," I replied through a light sob. "And I'm guessing it's only a matter of time before the fire spreads, and all the books go up with them. Then all that knowledge lost. Then it's back to catapults and burying perishable food underground to keep it cool," he said. "Pretty much. And all because a bunch of politicians can't stop arguing. Hell, they probably don't actually care about this place. Probably some new trade deal with the segmentum sector or something they're negotiating, and can't even be bothered with this," Reggie remarked with a shrug. "And likely won't know about anything else for at least another year at best if we don't say anything. Probably won't even reply to my next few emails just because I get so pissed off at them," I said. "Yeah." We sat there in silence for a few minutes, just thinking. "Sir, did we basically, in a roundabout kind of way, just answer all of our own questions?" he asked. Yes, we did." "Can you speak the local language, sir?" he asked. "Fluently and with gusto. Basically the same mannerism as a well-trained crow speaking Spanish," I replied. Cool. So, last question. How good are you with finding your keys?" he asked. "I have never lost my keys in my 400 years of being alive," I replied. "Ah, cool. You know, the Carpathia's engines should still be warm. Fancy a joyride?" he asked again. "Well, that sounds like a lovely time, especially at my age. Let's go for a jaunt. There's this lovely planet with a breathable atmosphere nearby. Maybe we can take a walk around and do the whole touch grass thing people keep whining about," I replied calmly, and started walking towards the docking arm. "Cool, I'll fly. I got a surface-to-space shuttle fully fueled in the hangar bay just in case. I'll ask you to hold the keys when we're on planet, though. I can't say I trust myself with them," he replied, and smiled as we walked together to the ship. "Excellent. I shall hold the keys expertly while you fly us back. I'm sure nothing will happen to the ship," I said. "Indubitably, sir. Please follow me to the bridge. I'll get the ship's reactor started." Reginald quickly headed up to the ship. He moved fast, and as I got inside the main hull, the engines were roaring into action as the undocking procedure was activated. "Oh, Melanie, my dear, please take command of the station for a few hours, and don't send any transmissions back home, would you? I'm going for a walk," I said, strangely calm into my communicator to my assistant. Yes, sir. Docking bay 7 release clamps, I guess," she replied sheepishly. Moments later, we were fully underway. I hated atmospheric entries. It was too goddamn bumpy, and Reggie wasn't being careful about it. I spotted where we were going. The capital city of the largest of the 5 nations that existed on this planet. We were going to park the ship right in front of their capital building and see what happened. I steeled myself. I was about to put on the single worst acting performance in history. I needed to play my part perfectly. The locals, of course, were in a full state of panic to see the mile-long starship freighter heading straight for the largest city on the planet. The news feeds picked up fast, radios blaring, and the primitive televisions they had barking what few orders they could still relay, as the army, or what could be gathered at short notice, mustered to arms outside the Capitol building. Riots suddenly ended as mass panic gripped the population. Apparently attacking federal buildings was less important than us. Probably was the most absurd thing one could see. I certainly would be scared out of my skin at the sight of a mile-long starship suddenly appearing out of the sky. The landing was quite rough. I gave Reginald a translator visor so he could hear what was going on and follow through. The aliens could hear us speak clearly too. I, of course, didn't have to try that hard. I walked down the cargo ramp at the ship's rear, the ass end aimed at the Capitol building, and the now sizable force of bolt-action rifle-armed men gathered on its steps. I waited for Reginald to ready the shuttle from the hangar bay. It didn't take him long, and he handed me the keycard chain, sans the keycard for the shuttle, of course. He gave me an approving nod and hid behind the cargo access ramp, waiting for his cue, and hit the button. The ramp slowly lowered. I would be telling a lie if I said I was not intimidated by the sight of several hundred short bird people aiming guns at me. I casually, or at least as casually as I could, wandered onto the grass under the ship. "My, what a delightful day for a casual walk," I said. My voice, in perfect Radian, the local language, carried through the city via the ship's speaker system. I noticed an immediate tone shift from the local populace. I wasn't sure what to make of it, really. They were surprised at the very least to hear my booming voice, but also in their native tongue. I clearly had an accent, what with the flabby mouthparts versus beak, but it was enough. "It's such a joy to casually fly about in my big cargo ship. The big cargo ship with incredible technology, such as the mass fabrication system, that can build almost anything at a tenth of the normal cost. I dare say a privilege," I half-heartedly said, acting as best I could. I wasn't here to act. I was here to deliver as unsubtle a message as I could. Reggie began strutting as nonchalantly as he could down the cargo ramp behind me. "My, what delightful grass," I said, kneeling and rubbing my hand on the grass beneath my feet. "Don't you think so, Pilot Reginald, owner of the big cargo ship?" I asked. I could tell that both of us weren't made for this acting thing, and we were cringing internally, but the show continued. "Oh, the big cargo ship with the gene synthesis unit that can cure any disease imaginable? Oh yeah, I know that one. I just flew it. My, what lovely grass," Reggie loudly said, and likewise reached down to fondle the lawn. "Tell me, Reggie, how much fuel do we have left in the big ship?" I asked. "Why, all the fuel we could ever ask for, using hydrogen, of course. Not to mention the multi-gigawatt reactor that can power several cities on nothing but bottles of water," he said with a smile, gesturing to various parts of the ship. "Speaking of hydrogen, do you know it can be used as fuel thanks to the huge number of secondary engines on this thing? I mean, wow, it can replace all fossil fuel and burning with just this simple system," I replied, flaming my arms and frantically gesturing at that thing over there manner. "It also has hydroponics that reduce growth times of any produce, even trees. 10 times the food supply at a tenth of the time. It's amazing," he said, giving the ship's hull a pat like a sleazy car salesman. "I know! All of the technology the local people could possibly need to solve any conceivable problem if they stripped the ship down and reverse-engineered all of the technology. Why, they could become just as powerful as we are in half the time," I bellowed, looking at the High Council with a certain not-so-subtle knowing grin. "But, sir, if the locals get access to this tech, won't they become hostile? It will be like giving a caveman a few nukes. Surely there's a responsible way to tell them they should use this technology with a responsible, cautious mindset," Reggie asked. "That's what the internal archive is for, you silly goose." I cringed slightly too hard with that, but soldiered on. "The internal archive contains a copy of our entire history, including the parts where we took it too far, too fast, and suffered billions of casualties in pointless wars. It's okay, they can easily learn how to avoid our mistakes and still make it up to our level no problem," I said, and once again, with no subtlety whatsoever, smiled knowingly at the locals. "Well, hot damn, that's swell, sir. Why don't we finish our walk and then we can go home for lunch? I think the big cargo ship will be perfectly fine if we leave it here for a minute or two. You know, the big cargo ship that has tech that can cure all diseases, fix any machine, create any item, and fly into space to mine asteroids for much-needed resources. I'm sure we will be fine so long as we don't lose these key cards which control all shipboard functions, Reggie said, with even less subtlety than I had, brandishing the keychain. Oh, that's a fancy keychain. May I see it? I asked. Reggie handed me the keychain and I sarcastically looked at it. Yep, that's a keychain. With the grace and subtlety of a drunken elephant in a glass shop, I tossed the keychain to the ground near the cargo ramp. Whoops! Oh my! Oh dear! Oh no! I dropped my keys. I cannot find them. I delivered my line and aggressively pointed to the key cards as they hit the floor, making absolutely sure everyone knew where I dropped them. Oh, you clumsy oaf. Now we will have to take the shuttle home. No matter, I am sure the ship will be just fine here. Come now, before you cause more mayhem, let's get you home and we can both have lunch. I will fly the shuttle. Won't the bosses back home be angry at what you just did, sir? Reggie asked. The bosses back home can swivel on a cactus shaped like my middle fingers for all I care, and I don't give half a shit to start with anymore. I am tired of the misery I've been looking at for the last 8 months and getting jack and shit in response, so to be honest, I'm fine with the court-martial I'll face. But you know what? They can't execute me for losing my keys, I barked in response. Reggie laughed, his professionalism slipping slightly as he stifled his laughter. What little facade we had was already slipping. They certainly can't do that, sir, no matter what happens. I sure hope the locals will take care of the Carpathia, even if they might take a few bits off, Reggie said, gently patting the ship's hull again. Oh, I am sure they will. The Titanic survivors sure thanked her namesake back in the day. Seems kind of poetic, isn't it? The last voyage of the Carpathia. A fitting and poetic moment, wouldn't you say? I said. Indeed it is, sir. She has served me well these last 60 years. I am sure whatever happens, she will fly again. Anyway, let's go home. Oh yes, looking forward to it. Did you leave some extra nutrient blocks in the Carpathia by any chance? I asked. Oh, about 3,000 tons. That should be more than enough for a while if they ever need to, and the nutrient fabricator can always make more, Reggie replied, with a wink and a smile at the nearby ruling class. Oh, excellent. If something were to happen, that amount would hold them off at least until the next harvest. Come, Reggie, home time, I said. Leaving the local populace cringing themselves to death at our performance, Reggie and I entered the shuttle bay and got on the ship. We left shortly after, and within minutes we were in space. I watched the video feeds, not only from the local towns, but also from the camera feeds inside the Carpathia. One particular camera was mounted in the rear of the cargo bay, a very obvious camera that very obviously tracked anything moving inside of it. The local ruler, a man by the name of Chancellor Bakan Dimun, wandered into the cargo bay with his army of men. They made quick work of clearing the place out and securing every inch of it. Bakan moved close and noticed the camera looking at him. He walked close to it and took a deep breath. Absolutely terribly terrible actors, but very amazingly good people. Thank you, he said. He gave us a thankful regal bow, with a sad but thankful smile. See you soon, I said, and closed the feed. He couldn't hear me, but he could in spirit anyway. You think we'll get away with this stunt, sir? Reggie asked. Of course not, but I did it anyway. It was the right thing to do. You always do the right thing, Captain. Speaking of, we are not going to say anything about this for a few months. Then when the inspectors arrive and start sniffing about, rat me out. I am taking the fall for this, not you. That is also the right thing to do. Understood? I ordered. Sir, yes, sir. I looked down and gave one last salute to the cargo freighter we left behind. Goodbye, dear. I would say this fate is better than what your predecessor suffered, but at least it is for a far greater cause than any of your ancestors could have imagined. May your new owners treat you with the reverence you deserve. Amen to that, Reggie said.